How's it going, folks? I wanted to make this one last-minute video listing my updated predictions regarding who's going to win at UFC 250. Now, before I begin, I just want to say that this video is for fun. I don't endorse any kind of gambling, nor do I promote it. Nevertheless, here we go. Alright, starting off with Diego Lopes and Steve Garcia. Now, from everything that I've seen of both Diego Lopes and Steve Garcia, I'm pretty confident that Lopes is going to get this done. I think that I really like to do for any predictions I make is kind of just, look at the previous recent history. And if we look at Garcia, we can see that he has, had a TKO victory over David Onama, Kyle Nelson, and Nurin Dimbaiki. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah. What does this have going for him, right? Well, Garcia does have pretty good power, and he is technical enough to have it land pretty often. However, his defensive game is a bit sus. Don't get me wrong, his forward, heavy approach is very entertaining. But for his own sake, it is a big reason why he's been knocked out and why he even almost got knocked out against Nurin Dimbaiki before, he got that rectified in the fight. I do think he is getting better. You don't go to the distance with Calvin Kattar if you have subpar striking, right, and win. But yeah, now let's go on to Diego Lopes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Diego Lopes fan. I'm gonna have an inherent bias towards the fighter that I like. But hear me out. In his last few fights, he starched out Gene Silva, went to the distance with Volkanovski twice. Yeah, he lost, but still, he was there. He was being competitive enough, He whooped Ortega. He actually knocked him out, and then with another punch woke him up. So, he destroyed Sadiq Youssef. And now regarding power, I would say that both of them are pretty well matched. I would still say that Lopes has a little bit more power. I would say so. But Lopes definitely has a way better chin than Garcia. The shots that Gene Silva, landed on Lopes, they would have slept. They would have slept Garcia, bro. He would have been cooked. But, Lopes kind of took those and, knocked out Silva, So overall, I do think that Lopes has this one in the bag. I'm going to give it a 60-40 split. I think 60% for Lopes and 40% for Garcia, just because the power factor is there. And, Lopes is also there to be hit. He's not insanely elusive or something. He's not going to be he's not going to be insanely elusive out there. He's kind of relying on his chin. But yeah, so I'm going to say 60-40 for that fight. Now, let's move on to Bo Nickel versus Kyle Daukaus. Now, I'm probably the only dude out there that thinks that Kyle Daukaus has a pretty decent shot here, right? So let's go to their quote unquote resume, right? The recent history. Now, Bo Nickel clearly has the wrestling advantage, right? So he can definitely use that to not only impose the threat of the takedown, right, and potentially catch Kyle on the feet. And let's not forget, Bo actually does have pretty good power as well. He's knocked out a few fools, But, he's also shown relatively good fight IQ as well, which is what, caused him to just leave Rodolfo Vieira just out cold. He was constantly faking the takedown and then caught Vieira off guard with a really beautiful head kick. These are the type of tactics that he really does need to utilize against Kyle to win. But let's talk about the big elephant in the room here, and that's the fight with Renier de Ridder. Yeah, there's no other way. There's no two ways about it. That was a really, really bad look, losing to Renier de Ridder in that way. Losing to RDR in general is not terrible, right? Because even Whitaker lost. But losing in that way was a bit yikes, because it just seemed like he just kind of folded. But I'm just going to say, hopefully, he's improved from then on, and that was mostly just, hopefully that was just a mental thing that he was dealing with, and that ain't something that we need to be, too concerned about. Let's just say that. Yes, I do think Kyle is an insanely underrated fighter. I think people just assume that he's a can, but, let's not forget, he did basically knock out Kevin Holland and choke him out in the same fight. Yeah, sure, it was because of a headbutt, but still, all right, fine. We can scratch out that fight, right? Let's scratch that fight out. What else has he done? He's knocked out Michelle Pereira, who was on a 2-fight losing streak, sure enough, but he's also, submitted GM3, which that one is actually really, I would say, really impressive as well. Which brings me back to the fact that I don't think that Kyle Nelson is going to be too concerned with going to the ground, because I do think he has relatively decent defensive jiu-jitsu and offensive jiu-jitsu too. But of course, Bo is going to have these superior grappling advantage in, I would say, also jiu-jitsu as well, alongside wrestling, because if I'm not mistaken, he did also have a full-on grappling match with his name is just evading me right now. I'm just gonna put his face up there. The roided up jiu-jitsu guy, I forgot his name, damn it. Anyways, he's got to basically look at RDR's playbook here and pray that he can sort of replicate it. So yeah, and when it comes down to pure striking, I do think that Kyle's is actually going to be superior here. The only difference, like I said, is the threat of the takedown. And again, Bo is very dang efficient in doing that and faking the threat of the takedown and capitalizing on it and whatnot. So yeah, I do think that, Bo is probably going to win, but I don't think that Kyle is some kind of can. So I'm going to say it's a 70% shot of Bo to win and 30% for Kyle Dawkins. I said Kyle Nelson earlier. I don't know why the fuck. Kyle Dawkins, what the hell? Anyways, now moving on to Mauricio Rufy versus Michael Chandler. Now, you see there's an idea of a Michael Chandler. He literally has all of the skills and many attributes besides height going for him in fights, right? Now, the problem is he has some of the worst fight IQ I have ever seen, ever. Now, this often does makes for some entertaining fights, right? But at the same time, this is a major reason for why he has just not become a champion in the UFC, right? If Chandler was being smart, he really wouldn't care about just solely focusing on having entertaining fights. Go out there and impose your wrestling, which we know you're good at, and just don't have a crazy striking match because you're not that talented. You're just not that good on the feet against a lot of these guys at lightweight, bro. You're just not. And especially against Roof, you don't even entertain the idea of doing that because you will get sniped out badly. You will be put out cold. Don't do that. Someone who understood the assignment was, BSD. And this is why he was able to just, get Rufy with the face crank. Now, especially with Rufy's karate, heavy stance, this is just textbook for, a blast double. This is something that, let's say if Arman were to fight Rufy. You think Arman's going to just keep it standing against Rufy, bro? No. He's not going to do that. He's going to, shoot instantly. If not instantly, he's going to maybe, stand for a few seconds, maybe a minute max, and set it up, and then, go for it. But it really, I don't know. Now, if Chandler does come into this fight with the right game plan, and he does do that, then I would be like, well, come on. Yeah, that's a solid 70% chance that Chandler wins, right? Like if he actually tries to basically Khabib style him, just completely just go wrestling in. I really do think that this would favor him. But I'm not confident in Chandler to do that. So tomorrow, I do think that we are going to be witnessing revenge time for Tony Ferguson. And I'm going to say 65% shot that Rufy wins this and 35% for Chandler. Now moving on to the big boys. Josh Hokett versus Derek Lewis. I really don't know what to make of this fight, right? I mean, Hokett, if he comes into this fight like how he did with Blades, I think he's going to go out get knocked out cold. I mean, I think the smart move for him is to really mix it up, focus on his wrestling, which he does have the accolades for that, and tire out Lewis and just kind of like see if he can win that way. But he needs to not telegraph his wrestling takedowns too much, because this literally is how Lewis was able to brutally chin Blades in their fight. And I do think that, Lewis has been looking insanely inconsistent recently. I mean, his last two fights, he was on a TKO winning streak, but then he just kind of like gave up from that one little jab from Acosta. It was just very weird. Nevertheless, he did show up at the weigh-ins in far better shape, and it does look like he's taking this seriously. You know what? I think Lewis is gonna win this. Again, I'm from the South, so I'm gonna say I got a bias for Lewis. I'm from the South. I've been watching Lewis for a hot minute. I am a fan, so I definitely do have a bias. But I just have a weird feeling that he is going to knock out Hokett. Objectively, this is not like a smart pick. It really isn't. I do think that Hokett is the smart pick, and he can basically kind of replicate a game plan that Daniel Cormier did against Lewis and potentially submit or TKO Lewis by tiring him out and going from there. And I do think it in any sort of educational, academic sort of, if you want to go that way with predictions, Hokett would be the smarter pick. But it would probably be 60% for Hokett and 30% for Lewis. But I just got a crazy feeling that Lewis is about to pull off some crazy shit. I don't know why, but I just do. All right, so Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane. Now, I would say that there are a few ways that this fight could go, but I'm gonna chalk it down to three different scenarios. So round one, Alex just proves out to be the best technical striker that Gane has ever faced, and as a result, Alex is able to have a very pressure-heavy approach and is defensively intelligent, and he earns a round one or round two knockout. Scenario two, Alex is just unable to deal with the movement and the elusive behavior of Cyril Gane, alongside Gane, mixing up the takedown just to keep the threat of the takedown there, and he ends up catching Alex on the feet and TKOs him or knocks him out cold. And then scenario three. Unfortunately, this is a scenario with Cyril Gane, which is that he uses the art of the French dip to zap Alex's eyes, and he ends this fight in another no contest. Now, I hope that one does not happen, obviously. But anyways, I must also admit that I want to see Alex win this, because I just would love to see him become triple division champ. I know this is the interim, but close enough. I mean, it is technically a belt, Also, I'm not necessarily a Cyril Gane hater. I do like Cyril Gane. I think he's a great fighter. He just has been pretty dirty in his last few fights. Now, even though I am a very big fan of Alex Pereira and his fights, I do see holes in his defensive game, And as an Alex fan, it is very stressful whenever he enters the fire, and he is just so open. More of the idea that Alex, again, this is going back to a just the common zeitgeist I've been seeing around the internet, which is that Alex, like that Gon's elusiveness is just going to be too much for Alex, and that he hasn't faced anyone like this. I find that to be a bit strange because, he is the same guy that fought someone like Israel Adesanya, Yuri Prohaska, Jan Blachowicz, so many more, and just look at the strikers that he fought in Glory. All of these people are just as elusive, if not more elusive, than Gon. The only difference is that Gon probably has more power than them. But even then, who the heck has Gon knocked out? Tai Tuivasa, sure. But that was after, a concussive amount of damage. And, he's not someone that has, at least historically, knocked out people cold with one punch. Or just, even if he lands perfectly fine, he hasn't done that. He's not like Francis Ngannou or even like Alex Pereira, how he just, flash knockouts or just straight up knockouts people. Or like an Ilia Topuria. This is not what we're really talking about. Now, a better argument that someone would make is that someone, if you look at the Khalil Roundtree fight, yeah, sure, in that fight, Khalil's speed and unorthodox tactics were, annoying Alex, and as a result, Alex was getting caught quite a bit. But eventually he did figure that out. Now the problem is this is heavyweight, so can Alex even afford to get caught once or twice? I would say he can't afford to get caught, even though, like I said, Cyril isn't like a knockout artist necessarily, but he is a 6'5", 200+ dude. So if he punches you, you will go out if you're not rolling with the punches properly. So as long as Alex can roll with the punches and, keep that pressure going, use his leg kick game. And, the reason why he really does need to keep the pressure going is because Cyril can easily be doing southpaw. He has shown that he's able to switch stances, but, if he's coming in from southpaw, Alex definitely has struggled against, fighters that are in that stance. And the best way to combat that is just to have a really pressure-heavy approach, keep them at bay, leg kick them from a distance. That's when the leg kicks actually will be more efficient because on a southpaw fighter. And yeah, overall, I think we will be seeing a slightly slower but more powerful Alex Pereira fighting Cyril Gane. And, unless, ultimately if Alex does not gas out and he can keep up with the movement with Gane while handling the threat of the takedown, I do think we're going to see Shaman time. I do think so, if that is the case. However, I'm not necessarily too concerned about the speed of Gane. What I'm most concerned about is the gas tank of Alex. I don't know how that's going to carry him. 251 pounds is what he's weighing at. 251. That is a massive difference from 205. I understand he's probably 230 in the cage. Even at 205, he's probably around 230. But still, that's a 20-pound difference. That's, that definitely will affect your gas tank, and it'll affect your speed quite by a bit too. So I don't know. Overall, and also guys, keep in mind this is happening outside, right? It's going to be happening in the humidity outside. It's going to be, at this point, it's going to be a fight that's being placed later on during the event. So the mat is probably going to be moist. It's probably going to be wet because it's probably going to freaking rain, and it's going to be slippery. This is going to be very interesting. I don't know, bro. It's going to be weird. Overall, I genuinely give this one a 50-50 shot. 50-50 for Alex, 50% for Alex, and 50% for Gane. It's just what I think. Now, let's go for the main event. Justin Gaethje versus Ilia Topuria. All right, so on paper, this really should be probably the easiest fight to predict, on paper, for the whole card. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, folks, there really is only one way I see Justin Gaethje winning this, and that is if he's able to keep Ilya at a slight distance, like around an arm's reach, and he's able to throw leg kicks, but he has to set them up. He cannot be throwing, just naked leg kicks. If he does that, he's gonna get shit. Like, not only is he gonna, if he's just throwing leg kicks and they're not set up, not only would that get checked, he would also get freaking counterpunch. Like, Ilya would make him pay for that big time. So he definitely does need to set up the leg kicks and do all that, be perfect while doing all of that, and then, hope he can land the head kick KO. That Ilya really does have a pretty bad, that is just a legitimate hole in his game, because not only has he been dropped really bad by Jai Herbert by that, but even in his earlier fight, like when he was just in MMA, he was dropped pretty bad in that fight by the same scenario. It kind of reminds me of Jorge Masvidal, how it's been a while, but it's like the straight left punch, I think. The straight left punch down the pipe was just something that Masvidal always was susceptible to. You saw this when he was in the Kimbo Street fights, and you saw this obviously in the Usman fight. Like, Masvidal would always throw a looping left hook, and then he would be caught straight down the pipe by a left punch down the center line. And yeah, it just seems like one of those holes that Ilya has, that head kick is just because of how Ilya fights. He's very boxing heavy, very that just the stance he has, and because he is very short, so if Ilya was fighting someone that was exactly his height, this wouldn't be as, critical. Volkanovski landing that head kick, it's not that big of a deal. Max Holloway, another reason why I think maybe Ilya has fixed this up is because if someone was gonna, go for that head kick and make sure it landed properly, it would have been Max. He went the distance nearly, I think it was round 3 or round 4. And, if Max wasn't able to do it, again, that is just straight up MMA math at that point, but which we know doesn't really work. But I don't know. He has done it to Dustin Poirier, so that's basically what he's gonna need. Now there is another thing. Actually, I take that back. There's one more thing. So Ilya is actually very hittable. Going back, I don't know, I guess just because how dominant he's been, I automatically was like, oh, this guy's just defensively perfect. He just doesn't even get hit. But honestly, this Ilya does get hit quite a bit. He's gotten that pretty nasty elbow from Charles in their fight, and he's absorbed multiple strikes from Max Holloway in their fight, and from Volkanovski. Now the thing is with Ilya, the majority of the strikes they even landed from Max and Volk, he was rolling with them. To be fair, he saw them coming and he rolled with them, and he was able to properly absorb those. Now the one with Charles, the elbow that hit him, that's just pure plot armor. I have no idea how he didn't even get shook from that, because that looked like a really solid elbow from Charles. So I don't know. I do think we're probably going to be seeing a very early Ilya Topuria KO victory in either round 1 or round 2 against Justin Gaethje. I would say that this is an 80% for Ilya and a 20% for Justin. I do think Justin's going to need a miracle here, and it's just kind of sad because Justin Gaethje is just, he's so good because even at his age, he's currently still fighting for the, title, which sure it should be Armand, but whatever. Let's forget about Armand for right now. He should be fighting. Like, the fact that at his age he's still able to hang in there, it's pretty insane. And part of me kind of is hoping that Justin Gaethje does pull this off, because, like, forget the fact that he's an American. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, yeah, that'd be great. But it's also because, like, I just kind of... It would be kind of cool to see Justin get gold. And if he... That would be such a Cinderella story where, like, if he's able to win gold, beat someone, knock out someone that, like, is so dominant, that would be so cool for his legacy. But then, obviously, if he's able to do that to Ilya, that's going to, like... instantly the next day, and that very night, I bet on Twitter, everyone's gonna be like posting, "Oh, he wasn't that good," or whatever. But I guess we're gonna find out Sunday night. Anyways, thanks for watching, and see ya.